Welcome back to our channel and welcoming you here on the topic Bertha von Suttner, who is the first woman to receive Nobel Peace Prize in 1909 for writing a novel, Die Waffen nieder. And it's a tradition if somebody is awarded with the Nobel Peace Prize or with any Nobel Prize, he or she is to deliver a lecture in the Nobel Committee, before the Nobel Committee. So today, since Bertha von Suttner is the first woman, that's why we are going to uh, speak, read the Nobel lectures that Bertha von Suttner had delivered in before the Nobel Committee in 1906 on 18 April. Bertha von Suttner Nobel Lecture on April 18, 1906. The name of the lecture is The Evolution of the Peace Movement. The stars of eternal truth and right have always shone in the firmament of human understanding. The process of bringing them down to earth, remolding them into practical forms, imbuing them with vitality, and then making use of them has been a long one. One of the eternal truths is that happiness is created and developed in peace. And one of the eternal rights is the individual's right to live. The strongest of all instincts, that of self preservation, is an assertion of this right, affirmed and sanctified by the ancient commandment, Thou shalt not kill. It is unnecessary for me to point out how little this right and this commandment are respected in the present state of civilization. Up to the present time, the military organization of our society has been founded upon a denial of the possibility of peace, a contempt for the value of human life, and an acceptance of the urge to kill. And because this has been so, as far back as world history records, and how short is the actual time for what are a few thousand years? Most people believe that it must always remain so, that the world is ever changing and developing is still not generally recognized, since the knowledge of the laws of evolution, which control all life, whether in the geographical time span or in society, belongs to a recent period of scientific development. It is erroneous to believe that the future will of necessity continue the trends of the past and the present. The past and present move away from us in the stream of time, like the passing landscape of the river banks, as the vessel carrying mankind is borne inexorably by the current toward new shores. That the future will always be 1 degree better than what is past, and discarded is the conviction of those who understand the laws of evolution and try to assist their action. Only through the understanding and deliberate application of natural laws and forces in the material domain as well as in the moral will the technical devices and the social institutions be created which will make our lives easier, richer, and more noble. These things are called ideals. As long as they exist in the realm of ideas, they stand as achievements of progress as soon as they are transformed into visible, living, and effective forms. If you keep me in touch with developments, and if I hear that the peace movement is moving along the road of practical activity, then I will help it on with money. These words are spoken by that eminent Scandinavian to whom I owe this opportunity of appearing before you today, ladies and gentlemen. Alfred Nobel said them when my husband and I visited with him in 1892 in Bern, where a peace congress was in progress. His will showed that he had gradually become convinced that the movement had emerged from the fog of pious theories into the light of attainable and realistically envisaged goals. He recognized science and idealistic literature as pursuits which foster culture and help civilization. With these goals, he ranked the objectives of the peace congresses, the attainment of international justice, and the consequent reduction in the size of armies. Alfred Nobel believed that social changes are brought about slowly and sometimes by indirect means. He contributed 80,000 francs to André's attempt to cross the North Pole. He wrote to me that this could contribute more to peace than I would believe. If André attains his goal, or even if he only half attains it, it will be one of those successes that stimulate a spate of talk and excitement, which open the way for the generation and acceptance of new ideas and new reforms. But Nobel also saw a shorter and more direct way before him. On another occasion, he wrote to me, it could and should soon come to pass that all states pledge themselves collectively to attack an aggressor. That would make war impossible and would pose even the most brutal and unreasonable power to appeal to a court of arbitration or else keep quiet. If the Triple Alliance included every state instead of only three, then peace would be assured for centuries. Alfred Nobel did not live to see the great progress and decisive events by which the peace idea was brought to life and made to function in a number of organizations. He was, however, still alive in 1894 when Gladstone, the great British statesman, went even further than the principle of arbitration in proposing a permanent international tribunal. Philip Stanhope, a friend of the grand old man, delivered these propositions to the Interparliamentary Conference of 1894 in Gladstone's name and succeeded in having a plan for such a tribunal forwarded to the member governments. Alfred Nobel lived to see the forwarding, but it was only after his death that any results were achieved. The calling of the Hague Conference and the founding of the Permanent Court of Arbitration, it was of incalculable damage to the peace movement that such men as Alfred Nobel, Moritz von Egizzi, and Johann von Bloss were taken from it prematurely. It is true that their ideals and their work continue beyond the grave, but had they still been living in our midst, how greatly would their personal influence and the effect of their work have contributed to the acceleration of the movement? With what courage would they have taken up the fight against the militarists who are at present time trying to keep the shaky old system going? That system is doomed to failure. Once a new system begins to emerge, the old ones must fall. The conviction is that it is possible, that is necessary, and that it would be a blessing to have an assured judicial peace between nations is already deeply embedded in all social strata, even in those that wield the power. The text is already so clearly outlined, and so many are already working on it that it must sooner or later be accomplished. Years ago, there was not a single minister of state professing the ideals of the peace movement. Today, there are already many heads of state who do so. The first statesman in office to place his agreement to an interparliamentary conference officially was, as I call, Norwegian Prime Minister Steen. It was John Lund, who brought this news, which caused a sensation at the time. To the 1891 Interparliamentary Conference in Rome. Moreover, it was the Norwegian government which was the first to pay the traveling expenses of members of the Interparliamentary Union and to make a grant to the Peace Bureau in Bern. Alfred Nobel had good reasons for choosing to entrust the administration of the funds of his peace legacy to the Norwegian parliament. Let us look around us in the world of today and see whether we are really justified in claiming for pacifism, progressive development, and positive results. A terrible or unprecedented in the world's history recently raised in the Far East. This hour was followed by a revolution even more terrible, which shook the giant Russian Empire. A revolution whose final outcome we cannot yet foresee. We hear continually of fire, robbery, bombings, executions, overflowing prisons, beatings, and massacres. In short, an orgy of the demon violence. Meanwhile, in Central and Western Europe, we narrowly escaped or we have distrust, threats, saber rattling, press baiting, feverish naval buildup, and rearming everywhere. In England, Germany, and France, novels are appearing in which the plot of a future surprise attack by a neighbor is intended as a spur to even more fervent arming. Fortresses are being erected, submarines built, whole areas mined, airships tested for use in war, and all this with just zeal as if to attack one's neighbor are the most inevitable and important function of a state. Even the printed program of the Second Hague Conference to be held in 1907 proclaims it as virtually a council of war. Now, in the face of all this, can people still maintain that the peace movement is making progress? Well, we must not be blinded by the obvious. We must also look for the new growth pushing up from the ground below. We must understand that two philosophies, two eras of civilization, are wrestling with one another, and that a vigorous new spirit is supplanting the blatant and threatening old. No longer weak and formless, this promising new life is already widely established and determined to survive. Quite apart from the peace movement, which is a symptom rather than a cause of actual change. There is taking place in the world a process of internationalization and unification. Factors contributing to the development of this process are technical inventions, improved communications, economic interdependence, and closer international relations. The instinct of self preservation in human society, acting almost subconsciously, as do all drives in the human mind, is rebelling against the constantly refined methods of annihilation and against the destruction of humanity. Complementing this subconscious striving toward an era free of war are people who are working deliberately toward this goal, who visualize the main essentials of a plan of action, who are seeking methods which will accomplish our aim as soon as possible. The present British Prime Minister Campbell Bannerman is reopening the question of disarmament. The French Senator the Entournelles is working for a Franco-German Attente. Joris summons the socialists of all countries to a united resistance to war. A Russian scholar, Novikov, calls for a sevenfold alliance of confederated great powers of the world. Roosevelt offers arbitration treaties to all countries and he speaks the following words in his message to Congress. It remains our clear duty to strive in every practical way to bring nearer the time when the sword shall not be the arbiter among nations. I wish to dwell for a moment on this subject of America. This land of limitless opportunities is marked by its ability to carry out new and daring plans of enormous imagination and scope, while often using the simplest methods. In other words, It is a nation idealistic in its concepts and practical in its execution of them. We feel that modern peace movement has every chance in America of attracting a strong support and of finding a clear formula for the implementation of its aims. The words of the president just quoted reveal full understanding of the text. The methods are outlined in the following objectives, which comprise the program of a peace campaign currently being waged in America. Number one, arbitration treaties. Number two, a peace union between nations. Number three, an international body with strength to maintain law between nations as between the states of North America, and through which the need for recourse to war may be abolished. When Roosevelt received me in the White House on October 17, 1904, he said to me, "World peace is coming. It certainly is coming, but only a step by a step." And so it is. However clearly envisaged, however apparently near and within reach the goal may be, the road to it must be traversed a step at a time and countless obstacles surmounted on the way. Furthermore, we are dealing with a goal as yet not perceived by many or perceived regarded as a utopian dream. Also, powerful vested interests are involved, interests trying to maintain the old order and to prevent the goals being reached. The adherents of the old order have a powerful ally in the natural law of inertia inherent in humanity, which is, as it were, a natural defense against change. Thus, pacifism faces no easy struggle. This question of whether violence or law shall prevail between states is the most vital of the problems of our eventful era and the most serious in its repercussions. The beneficial results of a secure world, threatening world, the beneficial results of a secure world peace are almost inconceivable. But even more inconceivable are the consequences of threatening world war, which may, which many misguided people are prepared to precipitate. The advocates of pacifism are well aware how meager are their resources of personal influence and power. They know that they are still few in number and weak in authority, but when they realistically consider themselves and the ideal they serve, they see themselves as the servants of the greatest of all causes. On the solution of this problem depends whether our Europe will become a showpiece of ruins and failure, or whether we can avoid this danger and so enter sooner the coming era of secure peace and law in which a civilization of unimagined glory will develop. The many aspects of this question are what the Second Hague Conference should be discussing rather than the proposed topics concerning the laws and practices of war at sea, the bombardments of ports, towns, and villages, the laying of mines, and so on. The contents of this agenda demonstrate that although the supporters of the existing structure of society which accepts or come to a peace conference prepared to modify the nature of war, they are basically trying to keep the present system intact. The advocates of pacifism inside and outside the conference will, however, defend their objectives and press forward another step toward their goal. The goal which, to repeat Roosevelt's words, affirms the duty of his government and of all governments to bring nearer the time when the sword shall not be the arbiter among nations. Thank you. That's all. Thank you very much. The laureate Bertha von Suttner delivered this lecture in the Hall's Brothers Concert Hall to a large audience, the Oslo Abston of April 1906, reports that the laureate, dressed in black, her voice husky with emotion, held her audience from the first, that she spoke concisely, using no contrived appeals, no gestures, no change of facial expression. The translation is based on the German text published in La Prince Nobel and 1905. So, anybody who is or who has already listened to the lecture of Bertha von Suttner, who had delivered this lecture in 1906 in the before the Nobel Committee on getting the Nobel Peace Prize, and she is the first woman. So, lastly, I'd like to request you all who are watching this video, please know more about Bertha von Suttner because she is the first woman to receive Nobel Peace Prize for writing a novel. Die Waffen nieder or nay, lay down your arms or simply stop your arms. Arms is not the solution to peace. Arms is not the solution to war. Peace is the solution to peace, and peace is the solution to war. So, thank you very much. And if you enjoy this video, I request you all to browse all other videos in my channel. I think the videos will give you education and this will give you entertainment also. Thank you. Bye bye for watching this.